Hey losers, I'm Coral. Welcome to my channel. If you're joining me for the first time, I read things that are shocking and transgressive and some other things. So if you're into that, welcome to the party. Today I am here with what I've read so far in May, and let me tell you, it's been a lot. It's been a lot, despite having like two of the most busy school weeks I've had this semester. I've managed to read quite a bit, so buckle in because we've got a lot to talk about today. I'll try not to make this too wordy. To start out with my reading stats though, for the first half of this month, I have read 13 books so far. 7 of these were books off my TBR, so I own them previous to this year. One was a reread, which I don't really count as like buying a book and reading it, but also don't count it as like one that I've had on my shelves that I haven't read yet. So it's just kind of in book limbo. I've read 8 books so far for the Read What You Own challenge, which is conceptualized by Ollie over at Criminali. If you want to check out his channel, he reviews and does a lot of like great discussion videos and stuff like that. So this isn't something I made up on my own, and usually it starts in November, but I decided to start now in May. So far I've read 8 books, like I said, 92 more to go. Maybe, I don't know if I'm doing 100 yet. I have to see how it feels. In total, I read 3,296 pages, which is about 253 pages per day. I will say I did read a couple graphic novels so far this month, and I've listened to a couple audiobooks, which definitely helps bolster those numbers. I've read 8 horror books, 3 sci-fi books, a fantasy book, and a true crime book. Most of these books have been more modern so far. So the oldest book I've read came out in 2018, and the most recent was a 2025 release. All right, now let's start with the books that I don't have physical copies of. The first one here is Something is Killing the Children, Volume 1. This is one I've wanted to read for a while. I was able to get a copy from my library, so that's how I read it. This came out in 2020. And I thought that this was a good jumping off point, but I can't say like I super loved the first volume. I feel like maybe the subsequent volumes you'll have more of an explanation, more of a backstory, and it will be more interesting. But this is about these creatures that are killing children. And in this, you're following a boy whose friends were all murdered by this creature, or by a creature, and 2, somebody who's like part of the society where they go after these creatures and kill them. So, like I said, good jumping off point, good artwork, although I will say this was a harder read on an e-device. I think because of the layout of some of the pages, it seems like some of them were probably like the story was told across 2 pages like this, instead of one page having this and another page having this. So it's like I'm zooming in, I'm like, I still can't read this, and then my e-reader screen is like loading every time I have to. It's just, and also it could be that my device is, it's not super old, but it's a couple years old, so I don't know, maybe it would be easier on a newer device, maybe not, but it was kind of hard to read as an ebook. Next, I listened to on audio from my library Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This was volume 1, and this came out in 2023. This has been super popular like fantasy that's come out in the last couple years, and my first instinct is I want to buy a copy, but then I was like, listen, if my library has a copy, this is how I should consume it first before deciding if I want to buy it or not. And I will say I really like this. It wasn't quite like a top of the top favorites for me, but I really enjoyed the story and the folklore, and it was kind of like low stakes, but in a good way. This is about Emily Wilde, who is, I believe what they're called, a dryadologist. So she studies kind of like folklore creatures like brownies and fairies and woodland folk that are, you know, most people would say made up, but maybe they're not. And so she's going to what I believe is a fictional country, kind of, that seems Scandinavian in its origin. It's very snowy. It seems like they probably live by like an ocean coast. And she's just there like to explore things and research things. So a lot of this is like researchy stuff. I really like Emily Wilde. She's kind of, I want to say off-putting, because that's not quite the word, but she's not super personable. She's very academically minded, and so like she doesn't always have like the interpersonal skills maybe she needs for an expedition like this, and that's why it comes in handy that she has kind of a partner helping her named Wendell Brambleby. But he's also kind of weird and in his own way, so it's just like nice, low stakes, something that was much different than a lot of the horror books that I read this month, so I liked this. Then I had an advanced reading copy of The Mean Ones by Tatiana Schlote-Bonne. She was kind enough to send me a link to a digital copy of this, and this I read so fast, just like her other book. Oh my god, I don't know how she does it, but there's just like something, I don't even know like how to describe how it's almost like there's just no break in the storytelling, so you're never like, and this is a good moment to set this down. It's just like, I want to keep reading it. This is a book with dual timelines told from a girl who's now a woman, but when she was a teenager in 2006, she went to camp. She went to camp with her friends, and she's got kind of a tenuous relationship with her little group of friends. And at the camp, something really terrible happens, and she is the only survivor of her friend group. Now she's living under a different name because the case got a lot of publicity, and she is trying to live a normal life, but she does not feel normal at all. And she has like these, you know, what a therapist called like PTSD flashbacks and stuff like that, where she's seeing things that are not there. And this has persisted throughout the years. Now she is, you know, in her 30s, and it's just not been great for her. But this starts to get even worse when her boyfriend and his friends, which also is kind of her friends as well, invite her to a little cabin trip. And she's like, oh, I don't like camping. You know that. And he's like, just be normal for once. And she's like, you're right. If I was normal, I wouldn't mind camping. And so they go there, and things that were happening before the incident at summer camp start happening now on her camping trip as well. And so like, what's going on? There's some like weird folklore stuff and like spooky, almost culty in the wood stuff, and it's really good. I really liked a lot of the aspects of the main character in this, the way that she acted and reacted to things. It's kind of subversive in the way where it's like, you know, people should act this way, but also we know like it's normal for people to not act, you know, typically, or like really what we see as typical is really not. It's just like the way you want people to act after things, kind of, you know? So I really liked that, and I thought it was a really, really good book, one that I would recommend. This comes out later this year. I want to say September, but I could be wrong. Let's look. Oh, I was right. It comes out at the end of September, so go pre-order your copy. The cover, so good. Love it. And I can't wait for more people to catch on to this one and see what everyone thinks. So, okay, the final audiobook I listened to this month was The Lamb by Lucy Rose. And this was another one where it's like, I really want to buy it, but probably I should wait to see if I like it, if I have that opportunity, right? So I did, because I also was able to rent a audio copy of this, and oh my god, this book blew me the flip away. I can't believe that this is a debut novel. This is about this girl named Margot, and she lives with her mother outside of a small village in England, and they eat people. And that's very normal for them. And it's so weird because you're reading this and you're like, this takes place in 1800s. But then Margot like gets on a school bus and goes to school and talks about people having cell phones. So it's a really weird contrast with her in this weird world with her mother, because that's what they've created. There's no outsiders. Outsiders get eaten. And they're just like in this little bubble. But then like periodically Margot goes outside of this bubble. But her mother's very controlling and is like, do not talk to anybody. Do not make friends. Do not call attention to yourself in any way. But things get really complicated when a woman comes to the door. Typically they would, you know, do away with a person like this. But instead, this person is invited to live with them. And it just throws everything off with Margot's relationship with her mother. And oh my god, I just like, it was so well written. I wish I could tell you more about this without spoiling it, but I really think that if you are interested, if this sounds interesting, you really should read it for yourself. A magnificent piece of artwork. I can't wait to get a copy. I actually, because it was Mother's Day last weekend and Zach treated me to a bookstore trip, which kind of goes against my read what you own challenge, but since it's a gift, I'm not gonna say no thank you for this gift. So I looked for a copy there and I couldn't find it. I was really bummed, but when I'm done with this challenge, I'm definitely gonna buy a copy because I fucking liked it so much. I can't believe that this is the first thing that this person was like, I'm gonna write something. And then they just came up with this, like the first time. I can't believe it. I mean, I'm sure, you know, I know how the writing process works, but I can't believe that this is a debut novel. Next, I read a short story collection by Max Booth III. This is called Abnormal Statistics, and this came out in 2023. Now, I like Max's writing, and I've liked everything I've read of theirs. I liked this, but it's not like, oh my god, drop everything. This is the best short story collection I've ever read in my life. But it was good. Like, would I recommend it? Yes, especially to people who like Max's writing. A lot of stuff about teeth. There's some things at the end where it's like, is this a callback to another story? And then it's like, you gotta sit down and think about it a little bit, and it's kind of creepy. And yeah, I like Max Booth a lot, and I really like their stuff. And this really definitely feels like they're writing, but it's just, I don't know. You know me and short story collections, so. Then I read The Magpie Coffin by Wile E. Young. This is one of the splatter westerns done by Death's Head Press. This is #1. I've had it since 2020 and I just have not read it. So it came up during the Escape the Readathon challenge, which is what I've been doing this month, and also probably why I've managed to read so many things frantically this month. It's been a lot of fun. So this is a horror western book. We're following a man named Salem Covington who's got some sort of like weird supernatural thing going on, and he has also been taught some things by a man who was American Indian, and so there's a lot going on there with like, who is Salem? What can he do? Why is everyone so freaked out by him? Although he's very freaky. I liked this, but I think that this is a revenge story. So he's in pursuit of the group of people who killed the man who was his teacher. So he's got to track down a group of people. They've kind of separated. So it's one of those stories where they're on a little bit of a journey, which maybe you know if you've watched my reviews, I don't typically love stuff like that. So it was like those parts kind of terribly boring to me. The action part's really good and I liked that. But when he caught up to these people, it's like the first guy that they find is the one where the plot behind it and the story behind it was the most exciting. And then it was kind of all downhill from there, and I feel like he should have mixed it up a little bit, like make the most exciting one at the end, right? So there's more of a build-up instead of this, you know, slope. So that's just my opinion. I thought that the gore in this was excellent. There is some super great depravity in it that made me go, ugh, you know, bad people in this story. Okay, and then I read one that has been talked about a lot recently, and I've had a couple people say, let me know when you read this, I want to hear what you think about it. This is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman, or DCC for short. This is the first in a series that I believe has 7 or 8 books. Like, the last book is already coming out, I'm pretty sure, this year, and this first one was published in 2020, which is kind of crazy. And they're like thick books. This one's 450 pages. So this is about Carl, who is a perfectly normal human worm baby until something happens to our planet, and these aliens are like, yeah, you know what? You guys were part of this like interstellar agreement and you didn't hold up to your side of the bargain. So now everyone on the surface of the earth is going to die, except for a select few, but those might only survive if they go into this dungeon. And it's like a video game inside almost, and it's televised. So part of it reminded me a little bit of, I know people are gonna hate this, but the Hunger Games, where it's like, you kind of want to curry favor by your actions. So it's not just about surviving, it's about what you do also, which is kind of interesting. And he is thrown into this dungeon, and he has his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, with him, who is just great in this as well. Yeah, so many things happen. He has to, in this book, he has to, you know, figure out how to survive. There are like mini bosses and final level bosses, and you can't just stay on the first floor of this dungeon forever, or you'll get, I don't know, turn into bone dust or some shit. There's goblins and all sorts of weird things in this. So I love this so much that I was, okay, listen, I don't read a lot of book series because I read it and then I'm like, I want to be done with this, kind of, right? Like, I don't, even if I don't hate it, I'm like, I can't be submerged in the same world for too long at once. So usually I would not pick up a book and then read the second one and then read the third one and then read the fourth one. And I didn't do that for this, but if I had had the second one when I finished this, I would have immediately picked it up because I just, like, I want to reread this already. And it's so much fun. It's so funny if you like to play video games, if you just like humor, if you like weird stuff, kind of weird books happening, or weird things happening in books that you're just really never sure of what's going to happen next. I would definitely recommend this. It's so much fun. Okay, I also read The Siren and the Spectre by Jonathan Janz. This has been on my shelves for, oh my god, so long. This came out in 2018, and this was the book that a couple years ago, probably around the time it came out, everyone was like, hell yes. Jonathan Janz was a big name in like indie horror for a while, and I bought and read several of his books, I think like 4 or 5, before I finally realized that, hey, maybe it's just okay for me to not like this author even though they're super popular. Because I really did not like really any of his books. And this, but I kept this one because it's like, this is the one that everyone loved. So I took the opportunity during this readathon to read this because it had been on my shelves for flippin' ever. And guess what? I also didn't like it. This is like a haunted house story. This man who's a skeptic gets invited to stay in this house and kind of do a write-up about it because I guess people take him seriously. I don't know. This is just weird. But the people who own it, he knows. And not only that, but his ex-girlfriend died in this house by suicide, which is something I really didn't like in this story, is that everyone is like, you're the reason she did this. You killed her. And not to be unsympathetic to people who suffer from mental illness, because, like, as some of you know, that's something that at many points in my life I've had issues with. Like, I've been seeing a therapist on and off for over 20 years at this point, so I get it. However, if someone makes that decision, it's terrible, and I really hope that if that's something you're thinking about, you get help, because it affects people, right? Like, people care about you in your life. But if someone decides to do that, that's not someone else's fault. Especially in this circumstance where he simply broke up with his girlfriend and then she did that. And everyone is blaming him about it, and the lens with which we're reading it through, there's like no point where someone is like, hey, it's not right to do that. Or the main character is like, they shouldn't be blaming me for a choice that she made and things like that. So it's like, that's the mindset, that it's your fault if somebody tells you they're going to do that and they do that. Or if you break up with your significant other and they do that, it's your fault, which is not right. And so the whole book, basically, that bothered me. I also thought it was kind of boring. There were some aspects to this, like, is it or isn't it haunted? Like the backstory behind this house that was interesting. There was this neighboring family who were really messed up, and I found that compelling, but that is a small portion of this book compared to everything else, and I just ultimately didn't love it. I read Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. This came out in 2023, and this means I'm caught up with her novels, at least, until Play Nice comes out in September, which I can't wait for. In this, we're following a young woman named Vesper who grew up in a religious cult. And now she's an adult. She obviously has no contact with her family, who are still in that cult. And she's not living exactly like the life that she probably wants to be living, you know? However, she does get invited back to the community when her cousin is getting married, and she decides to go back there. So there are some aspects of this I like. I felt that the religious cult was subversive. I really enjoyed that. Of course, I just love cults in books in general. I really loved that her mother was a like B horror movie scream queen, and that plays a lot into this story. So I liked that. But I also felt like there was just a lot of time in this where it didn't feel like a lot was happening. And I liked Vesper as a character a lot, actually. She's very like dry, not really a people pleaser at all. There's just something about it that it's missing some of that extra sparkle that I feel when I read Rachel Harrison's book. So I did really like this. I just felt like it's not in my heart on the same tier as some of the books of hers that I've really, really loved. This feels kind of like when I finished Cackled to me. I kind of had the same feeling about that. Like, it was good. Not a ton to complain about, but it just wasn't like, it didn't have that like little boost up to the next tier of love in my heart. All right, so I am officially caught up on Saga. I read volumes 10 and 11. Oh my God, some of the saddest, 9, 10, and 11, some of the fucking saddest volumes in this series so far. Like, I cried when I finished number 11. It's not cool what happened there, but again, this is a graphic novel series set in outer space where there is a planet warring with its moon, but this conflict has like kind of spread across the universe, and now it's like a lot of other planets and moons and comets and blah 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 have chosen a side on this conflict. And so it's really hard when two defectors from warring sides have come together, fallen in love, and had a child. So everyone wants to eliminate this family, make sure nobody ever finds out about it, because they don't really want people to know that a wing and a moonie can have a child together. So that's what this has really all been about. The story is so huge at this point, though. Very political, very fucking heartbreaking all the time, but so good. The true crime story I read this month came out in 2018. This is called A False Report, A True Story of Rape in America by T. Christian Miller and Ken Armstrong. And I can't remember if I had this on my shelf and then ended up like coincidentally watching the Netflix adaptation of this story, or if I bought this after I watched the Netflix adaptation of the story. But there is like a fictionalized dramatization of this, and it was good. It's really sad, and like the story's sad. I just didn't, I don't know. The book was at points not very interesting, and that's not to say that a victim story is not interesting, because that's just not how I feel, of course. And interesting isn't even like the right way to phrase that either. It's like, I'm not rating what happened to them as like I loved it or I hate it. It's like, I'm rating this book, obviously. So this is a story of a young woman named Marie who is on her own for the first time, living in an apartment. She's had a really rough life, and this is the first time she's had a place where it really authentically feels like her own place. And that's ruined for her when someone breaks in and assaults her. And she goes to the police about this, but they really don't like the way she's told this story or what she's done afterwards. And they just don't end up believing her, basically. It's terrible. So you go into Marie's life, you go into the life of the person who committed these crimes, and it's depraved, honestly, this person. Truly, like one of the worst people you've probably never heard about, because I hadn't. This is really sad. It takes place it happened in 2008 in Seattle, or near Seattle, it says. To wrap things up here, I read Crossroads. This was a reread for me, so expect a review for that. Obviously, I love this book and I really liked it, so I can't wait to talk in depth about my feelings on this. So those are the 10 million books that I read in May so far. I can't wait to see what happens in the second half of May. Hopefully I can get some of these posted this weekend. It's my final week of school, and you would think that like finals week is the one where you're like really scrambling to get shit done. But, and like I'm kind of doing that, but let me say that last week, the week prior to finals, is one of the worst homework weeks I've ever had. Definitely the worst one of the semester so far, so it's been rough around here. Anyway, I can't, like, I'm like, where did I find the time to do this? I basically read and did homework, and that's all I did for a week. I don't think I even slept. I've been getting up at 3:30 because of Zach's he's had this weird fucking work schedule because he's in the middle of a big project at work. And so it's been tough, but I'm almost to the end of my school semester, and then things will be a little less chaotic for a little while. So as always, I would love to know if you read any of these, what you thought about them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Goodbye.